Welcome back to Parasite TV. I'm Max Powers, and this is a Celebrity Conspiracy Theory Iceberg Part 2. I also decided to throw in some dark Hollywood lore and just disturbing scandals that seem like they've been swept under the rug. First off, I wanted to give a massive shout out to everyone that's subbed and gotten invested in my content so far. You guys mean the absolute world to me. Thank you for all the subs, all the likes, all the comments. I try really hard to reply to as many of them as I can, and yeah, it just means a lot. So I guess this one goes out to you guys. On June 16, 1972, almost exactly 5 years before Kanye West's date of birth, David Bowie's The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars was released. Other than Bowie's striking alter ego Ziggy, there's really only one other visual focal point on the album cover, a glowing shop sign hanging above his head that reads K West. The album's first song was titled 5 Years. The song tells the tale of an apocalyptic world, in which humanity would be saved from itself 5 years later when a Starman arrives on Earth. Almost exactly 5 years later to the day, Kanye West was born. Bowie's final album was titled Black Star, and in the title track, he sings lyrics that seem to shed some light on his intended successor. Quote, "Something happened on the day he died. Spirit rose a meter and stepped aside. Somebody else took his place and bravely cried, 'I'm a black star.'" When Bowie passed away, Kanye was pretty much the first major artist to commemorate him, tweeting, "David Bowie was one of my most important inspirations, so fearless, so creative. He gave us magic for a lifetime." One last unsettling detail. 3 days before Bowie lost his battle with cancer, Sia released her new single, which had been co-written and co-produced by Kanye West, titled Reaper. Did David Bowie have some kind of prophetic vision of Kanye West's arrival and impact on the music scene? Or was it all just coincidence? I'm sure many of you know of Brandon Lee's tragic death on the set of The Crow, but I was surprised when I recently heard that was one of multiple horrible accidents that happened during production that led to the cast and crew believing that without a doubt the movie was cursed. John Polito, a veteran actor, reported that on the first day of shooting on set for The Crow, a terrible accident happened. A crew member was driving a cherry picker, which is like a mobile crane to set up lights, and backed into an electric pole. The 26-year-old man who was on top of the cherry picker was electrocuted almost fatally, causing all of his internal organs to be burned. Polito also explained that on the third night of filming, a prop truck burst into flames and no one knew how or could explain what happened after. A stuntman fell through the roof of a rooftop set, breaking multiple ribs and almost dying. Then, a second crew member was electrocuted while using a metal grinder, this time causing serious burns to the man's face, hands, and chest. When the cast and crew had to endure a massive hurricane battering the set and area of North Carolina where they were filming, they began to seriously question whether or not the production had been doomed from the start. A sculptor who was apparently disgruntled due to his work not being featured heavily enough on set reportedly drove his car through the plaster shop and into the set, causing thousands of dollars worth of damage and delays. And things took a gruesome turn when a member of the art department accidentally had a screwdriver shoved completely through their hand. And finally, on the day that the film would become infamous for, March 31st, 1993, with just 9 days of filming left, the weapons master was sent away for the day, but some last-second on-set rewrites took place, and Michael Mass, who played the character Funboy in the movie, was instructed by the director to be the one who kills Eric Draven, which of course was Brandon Lee's character in the movie. Because the weapons master had been sent home, the prop master loaded homemade blanks into the .44 Magnum revolver. Earlier that day, live rounds had been fired from the gun, and there were actually bullet fragments in the barrel. Also, the blanks were made by removing the gunpowder from the live rounds, but a little bit of gunpowder had been left in one. So when the director called action and Michael Mass pulled the trigger, the gunpowder ignited and launched the bullet fragments out, causing Brandon Lee an injury that would later become fatal. But do not get it twisted, this was pure negligence across the board. Michael Mass had no fault, trusted the professionals around him, and did what he was told, and ended up taking a life. He took years off of acting, and in 2005, he said he never got over it and never thought he would. And Brandon Lee, son of Kung Fu legend Bruce Lee, died at just 28 years old. So knowing that negligence and extremely sloppy handling of an actual firearm led to Brandon Lee's death, what's more likely? That the set was cursed, or that there was an overall lax nature among some of the crew or leadership that led to a set plagued with injuries and a death? On August 25, 2001, 22-year-old R&B singer and budding actress AALIYAH died along with 7 others when the plane they were in crashed. But was this a tragic accident or a well-thought-out scheme perpetrated by the very people who were supposed to be protecting her and helping her in her career? Now, AALIYAH was extremely talented from a very young age, and I think one of the things that the public is now realizing more and more is that often child stars are heavily taken advantage of. That seems to be the case with AALIYAH, as when she was just 11 years old, she signed onto her Uncle Barry's record label, Blackground Records. A couple years later, AALIYAH's first record dropped when she was just 14 years old, and this record would go on to sell 3 million copies, so depending on the deal, her uncle is already making millions of dollars off of her. But most disturbing is the name of the record, Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. Now, this is no accident. AALIYAH's family had basically sold her off to none other than R. Kelly. Uncle Barry called R. Kelly to come hear AALIYAH sing, and he did a lot more than that, and impregnating AALIYAH, then marrying her when she was 15. Because he had gotten her pregnant, he and the family thought that it would probably keep him from getting in trouble if they got married. R. Kelly helped write and produce this first record, so it's rather clear that he was trying to cover his own ass and get across his own disturbing agenda through her. Now fast forward to August of 2001. AALIYAH was shooting a music video with director Hype Williams in Miami. Then after the production had already started, Hype and Uncle Barry decided the production needed to wrap in the Bahamas. Just 4 days before AALIYAH's tragic death, her uncle, Barry Hankerson, signed some kind of agreement to protect himself from any kind of lawsuits if anything were to happen to AALIYAH on set or during the trip. And Barry wound up receiving $90 million through insurance payouts after her death. AALIYAH was known to be an anxious flyer, and apparently, due to her stress, friend Lenny Kravitz sent a private jet to the airport she'd be departing the Bahamas from. But the day before she left, director Hype Williams took the private jet for himself and left her and her entourage there. The plane that AALIYAH ended up boarding was not rated to carry passengers, it was literally a cargo plane. When she saw the plane, she basically threw a fit and said absolutely not, but she did have work to do, so she'd need to make it work somehow. According to taxi driver Kingsley Russell, who had gotten a job on AALIYAH's team in the Bahamas as their baggage handler, he was there and saw AALIYAH basically refuse to get on the plane, then saw members of her team give her a pill, and then later saw them loading her unconscious body onto the plane. The plane was hundreds of pounds overweight, and not only that, but the plane was loaded unevenly, which means it would be extremely difficult to control in the air. And the pilot had lost his license and had both alcohol and other illegal substances in his system. So was this truly a tragic accident where AALIYAH was just in a bad situation because the people that were supposed to be managing her, who should have been treating her like royalty, I mean, at this point she had been making them millions for almost a decade, and they just treated her like dirt and used her all up? Or was it a coordinated effort to make sure she never made it home from that trip because they knew they were going to make a ton of money from the insurance claims? Stanley Kubrick is rightfully seen as one of the best directors of all time, a true visionary and titan of the industry, making films like Full Metal Jacket, A Clockwork Orange, The Shining, 2001: Space Odyssey, and his final film, Eyes Wide Shut. What you may not know is that many people have spent decades analyzing his films, claiming that he leaves Easter eggs and thinly veiled secrets and occult references in his films for those with eyes to see. Some theorists claim that these aren't just references, but Kubrick's soft disclosures of what he knew lay just beyond the curtain of surface reality. See, Kubrick made his movies on both the subconscious and conscious levels. In Full Metal Jacket, as the Marines walk past a gas station, the Vietnamese writing on top of the building reads, "To continuously serve Satan, Your Excellency." In A Clockwork Orange, among other more obvious references to brainwashing and trauma-based mind control a la Project MK Ultra, characters drink a substance called Drencrom before going on a vicious crime spree. Theorists claim this is a reference to an illicit substance available only to the wealthiest, most powerful elites. This substance substance apparently extracted from the human pineal gland. The name of this substance I can't utter on YouTube, whether it's fictional or not. The Shining, of course, was written originally by Stephen King, but the Stanley Kubrick adaptation starring Jack Nicholson is bursting with subtle, disturbing details and esoteric occult references. Some of the film's most dedicated analysts think Kubrick is insinuating that the elites of the world, the most wealthy, famous, and powerful, are involved in a dark ritualistic cult. While touring the hotel in the beginning of the film, Wendy asks if the hotel has ever served royalty. Mr. Ullman replies with presidents, movie stars, and all the best people. In the film's final scene, Jack can be seen making a very distinct gesture in front of all the other trapped souls, which many believe this gesture symbolizes Baal or Baphomet. The theory being that this is the true religion of the elites. One of the scariest aspects of the movie is the twins. When the twins are first shown, it's in front of a poster that reads Monarch, which is another term heavily associated with Project MKUltra. Is it possible Kubrick was again hiding messages referring to the trauma-based mind control system that theorists claim has been used on many people? Danny Torrance, the little boy in the film, disassociates and has a powerful psychic ability, kind of like in Stranger Things, another show using many ideas originally explored in Project MKUltra, where we see Eleven is isolated, then shown affection, then abused in order to unlock her innate psychic ability. Now, the movie tells us that heavy drinking led to Jack accidentally breaking Danny's arm, but as the film progresses, it seems as though it may not have been an isolated incident. When Jack is waiting for his interview, he's reading a Playgirl magazine with a very disturbing title that may hint at some horrific abuse. The mom, Wendy, can be seen reading Catcher in the Rye, which has been called a mind control trigger carried by John Lennon's assassin Mark David Chapman and JFK assassin Lee Harvey Oswald when they committed their crimes. Kubrick's last film, Eyes Wide Shut, centered around the dark occult world of these ritualistic sex parties of the rich and powerful. It pretty much exposes them entirely. According to Kubrick's assistant, the director was extremely stressed about how Warner Brothers would receive his finished film, and had even taken up smoking again after quitting for a number of years. According to this assistant, he even said, "When they see this film, they're going to kill me." On the night of the test screening for the studio heads in London, Kubrick sat in the lobby smoking. After the movie, Kubrick went down into the theater and reportedly argued for 45 minutes with the director, screaming, "You cannot change my movie." Days later, Kubrick died from a sudden heart attack, which is exactly how a character in the film loses their life, and it is heavily implied that this is a punishment being carried out on this character for exposing the cult. The studio edited out 24 minutes of the final film before it was released. Of course, speculation ran completely wild on what those 24 minutes included, but as far as I could tell, nobody in the public really knows. Kubrick also passed 666 days before January 1st, 2001, and 2001: A Space Odyssey was considered to be a defining moment in his career. It's my opinion that Kubrick had deep inside knowledge of what really goes on behind closed doors in regards to the world's most rich and powerful elite. Some theorists even speculate that Kubrick may have helped the US government and NASA fake the moon landing footage. Hey, it's me, the guy from the video you're watching. If it wouldn't be too much to ask, could you like and maybe even subscribe? And you wouldn't want to forget the notification bell. Beyonce, the alleged queen of the Illuminati, needs no introduction. Beyonce made headlines and sent theorists into a frenzy when she famously froze up at a basketball game, many claiming this was a sign of her conditioning or brainwashing, as we see many celebrities freeze up like this. Or maybe she was just bored. All jokes aside, almost every Beyonce video, appearance, and performance is heavily influenced with occult symbolism, such as the triangle representing the all-seeing eye, like the time when she came out and made this symbol at the Super Bowl and the power blacked out. One of the more goofy threads I found about Beyonce turned out to be a little creepier than I first thought. I found a video claiming to show her shapeshifting into a horrible demon-like entity, which I thought of course was doctored video, but I was actually able to find the original poster of the video, a superfan that had simply uploaded her POV of the performance. The excuse was that the lighting made her eyes appear black because they were nearly closed, but that's not what we're worried about here. Conspiracies swirled when Beyonce became pregnant with Blue Ivy after this clip appearing to show her baby bump completely collapse as she sat down, causing the media to question if she was using a surrogate. I'm not sure why she would hide that fact, but I mean, I don't think this looks very natural. What do you think? Beyonce commonly wears a Baphomet ring, which I found interesting because in September of 2018, her drummer Kimberly Thompson quit the live band and sought a restraining order accusing the singer of extreme witchcraft. According to Thompson, Beyonce is involved in quote-unquote dark magic and uses quote-unquote magic spells of sexual manipulation. Thompson also alleged that Beyonce had tapped her phones and was controlling her finances and even killed her cat. Stephen Weaver Collins, famous for his portrayal of Eric Camden, the minister and father in the television show Seventh Heaven, and for playing Dennis and Dee's dad in Always Sunny, kinda disappeared. Well, there's a reason for that. Stephen Collins is much different than the virtued, godly man he usually plays on screen. In 2014, tapes leaked from therapy sessions between Collins and his estranged wife, in which he confesses to being a child molester. And these tapes eventually led to an NYPD investigation. In 2012, the two were going through some extreme relationship difficulties and attended a session in which she slammed her then husband with question after question about his crimes. And not only did he answer, but he was very specific.
The exposure happened a couple of times.
A couple of times? You told me once.
No, I said on the list it happened several times. I said on the disclosure.
Time.
It happened
with a 10-year-old. Okay.
Well, no, she was 11 and then like 12 and 13. There was never any conversation around it.
Now, in many cases, it is illegal to record someone without their permission, but in the state of California, where they were at the time, it is legal if you are recording to gather evidence that someone has committed a violent felony, and what he did definitely qualified. Collins confesses to exposing himself, touching and instructing a young relative of his first wife to touch him, from the time she was 11 to 13 years old. He then speaks briefly about a young girl in his neighborhood in LA, and a third girl in New York who was 12 and then 13 at the time of his crimes. In 2014, Collins revealed to People magazine that the crimes took place from 1973 to 1994, which is conveniently just before his acting career took off, in which he spent many years on set with young actresses. Interestingly enough, after he confessed on camera, one of Stephen Collins' victims came forward and basically said he was drastically understating what happened and how many times it happened. So who knows how many people this guy has affected. Although there was an investigation, Stephen is now living far away from Hollywood somewhere in Iowa and is married to a 32-year-old superfan. Alright guys, that's all I got for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Seriously,